Let's get you caught up again.
This is Dan. Look who I found. So we ran into, what's your name, by the way?
I'm Joey.
Joey.
Hi,
of Cards Chat and now Sunday Millions fame.
Yeah, kind of.
So, playing your first WSOP event today.
I am pretty excited.
How's it feel?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Of MSPT fame, multiple time fame.
Semi-fame?
Semi-fame
No.
of the MSPT variety. You're here all the way from London, you said, right?
Just for this one, a few tournaments actually.
Prager's like asking him 20 questions over
Man,
here.
he's a good guy. We have to talk to him.
And you've been up since what time?
4 a.m.
And you're from where?
England.
What time is it there?
So when I got up, it would have been midday. So that would have been the normal time to wake up.
Well, I think you're gonna do okay though.
Yeah.
You'll probably reset by tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I arrived yesterday, so I feel
Alright.
pretty excited.
Let's crush it.
Yeah, hopefully the adrenaline will push me through.
And we're playing the 8 max today. 800K guarantee.
Not bad, right?
You're pretty excited, right? First tournament in Vegas.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully I'll run pretty good.
I think there's gonna be some vlog run good for you. I don't know about me. It doesn't always work for me, but I think other people.
You always run good. And then you can tune in.
Oh man, he hasn't seen me in the tournaments this trip. Craig Trost, crusher, and probably gonna win this tournament.
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. So are we swapping?
Uh,
He doesn't swap.
I don't swap.
I'm gonna like remember to actually vlog and shit.
Yeah, you should.
I found a vlogger
Found a couple of them.
and
I'm not a vlogger.
another vlogger.
Can be.
Ernie, right?
Ernie, yeah.
It's Ernie. It's Chris. Like, we got the whole crew.
I'm almost
Actually, that's so true. Like, you know almost everybody in poker.
Almost everybody in poker.
Like, who do you not know in poker? Like, you're probably not like besties with Phil Hellman.
I don't know like Fedor Holtz.
Nobody knows Fedor Holtz.
Or no, that's the other one, Rainer.
What did you live stream about? Anything good?
Nothing, just telling people we were here. Me and Johnny and Ernie and everybody at poker.
Everybody in poker was
Everybody
there?
in poker is everybody in poker.
That's
is here.
like everybody Chris knows.
Yeah.
More like the
And this guy, he's on my flight.
Yeah.
Shout out to that guy.
I'm gonna go check out the games.
All right.
All right.
See you,
See you
Chris.
guys.
He's gonna play.
Nice to meet you.
I'm gonna pass out. They're gonna. What are you doing? I don't know. What you're
I don't
doing.
know.
We don't have a clue.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get some connect.
We're gonna do other stuff. So at this point, I've played quite a few cash games in Vegas before really getting into a lot of tournaments. So I just want to give you a kind of quick result and just give you a couple of hands. So far, I've played 6 cash game sessions while in Vegas. I'll put the results on the screen. Obviously, one session kind of made up a huge portion of the win so far, but it's been going pretty well. Pretty pleased with my play for the most part, and obviously some run good along the way. So let's get into a couple of those run good hands. Both of these hands are from the Meetup game with Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen. Johnny Vibes and Jamin Burton were also there along with myself, so it was quite a good crowd, and we actually filled up all 6 tables at the Westgate and still had a list of, I think, 100 people for a while. So it's pretty crazy, pretty wild, pretty fun. We're at the Meetup game, and Brad demanded the seat on my left. I just want that to be known.
Yeah, they reserved it for me. I don't know which seat they reserved for you, Matt.
They don't know who I am here.
Sure.
People I did not.
Brad's being famous over here. Some beverages were had. I partook in more than I typically would, and the run good kind of just flowed from there. This hand's pretty quick, but demonstrates sort of how the session went for me. I open in early position with pocket kings. Jamin Burton is on my immediate left and 3 bets. He starts making chicken sounds to indicate that I am probably afraid. Folds back around to me. I obviously think for a bit and 4 bet. He jams it in instantly, and I, of course, instantly call it off. And he has the head shake and the "that's not good, I didn't want to get snapped there" kind of look. So I just show him I have kings. He's got queens. Honestly, can't tell you what the board is, but it didn't really bring him any help. So I stack him there for around 700. I was up and down a little bit before that point, but he had about 700 in front of him, and I covered.
Oh, he's got the spades too, man. Oh, do it.
6
Do it. Don't do it to him.
Nice suck out, sir.
That's a terrible suck out.
I think he's got me covered.
Thanks, Jamin.
Rebuy.
No, Jamin's not gonna make the cut.
It's gonna make his cut. I wasn't recording. It'll make the mid-session update that I'm going to do here in a second.
I'll just play the rest of the session like this, because I have a feeling you're going to knock these over again.
You have a feeling that you're gonna stack him, so he's gonna do that again. Pick one.
No, not stacking specifically. I'm good for it.
Hey, you're not stuck anymore, so you can't complain.
You're right.
Okay.
This next hand is just pure insanity. There's a limp or two. The hijack or the cutoff bumps it up. Small blind calls. I'm in the big blind with ace-10 suited, and I have an option here between calling and 3-betting, but I decide to just call. And we end up going something like 5 ways to the flop. I'm not sure all the positions that are in there. I wasn't taking a lot of great notes at this point. There's something like 150 in the pot now, so I believe we were 6-handed to the flop for 25 each, something like that. The flop comes gin, king, queen, jack, and just for good measure, there's 2 hearts out there as well. Small blind checks, I check, and it checks all the way around to the original raiser, who obliges us with a bet, and he bets big. He bets 200 over the size of the pot, definitely has a strong hand. He almost certainly has 2-pair or better here the vast majority of the time, although I guess I could see someone playing ace-king this way. So of course at this point I'm doing mental cartwheels. I am thinking about how to best get the money in when the small blind check jams for about 750. I, at this point, am sitting on well over $1,500, probably close to $1,800, and the original raiser has over $1,500 as well. So I'm thinking to myself, should I ever just call here? Is it easier for him to call with weaker hands? Does he ever put me on a weaker hand than what I can have here? Because at this point, I think probably facing this action, my continuing range is usually going to be straights, because I probably 3-bet all of the hands that can be sets on this board, and I think it's probably a little bit suicidal from my seat to go in with 2-pair at this point. So if all I'm ever continuing with is straights, I kind of just have to hope that he has a set or something and just isn't going to fold. So I ultimately decide to just rip it in. I just jam. I'm all in. It's about 1,500-1,600 effective. Folds back to the preflop aggressor, and he says something to the effect of, "So you're telling me you both have ace-10?" And I was sort of like, I don't think the first raiser has to have ace-10. I think he can definitely have 2-pair. He can have worse straights. He can even have some draws sometimes, but I definitely never have pure draws here. But he does tank for a long time and ultimately calls. The turn is an offsuit 4, and the river is a beautiful brick. And I just have the nuts, turn it over. The person in the small blind says he had 2-pair, and the original raiser actually has 10-9 suited, 10-9 of clubs, I believe. So pretty brutal flop for them. I'll definitely take it. Kind of crazy pot at 2-5. Even given a 1K cap, this is a much bigger pot than I typically play at these stakes. So pretty nice to be on the right end of the massive cooler. And ultimately that is what propelled me up to an over $3,000 win in the game. So I just want to take a moment to thank Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen for coordinating this massively profitable session for me. In all seriousness, it was a lot of fun, and I would have had fun regardless of how it went, but this did sort of propel me back up from a couple of tournament losses.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, thank you. And boy, did those tournament losses start to add up.
Tell me about the World Series. Like, literally, what is it?
Bunch of poker tournaments that you go down to the Rio to play and you lose every day except for one of the days you hopefully win, and that makes up for all the days you lose.
And that's fun?
I had some other things going on these past couple weeks. I was playing some single table satellites, doing pretty well in those. I don't think that my results are even close to sustainable, and I definitely acknowledge that. But I will say that they have sort of been the summer saver for me thus far. I've been doing quite well in those. Don't really have hands to report from them. The structure's kind of silly. You start with 30 big blinds at the $275 buy-in level, and the blind levels are 20 minutes long. So pretty quick, very speedy. You get to the shoving portion of the tournament very quickly, and it's actually kind of nice because it's usually over in about 2 hours. I played 12 of them, chopped 2, and won one of them outright. So I'm up roughly equal amounts in cash and sit and goes at this point, and feels pretty good to have a little bit of a buffer on those tournaments. That being said, the tournaments have been going bad. Just to give you a taste, because I don't really find it super worthwhile to go through each of these tournaments and the kind of pure pain that came from them, but I do want to go over some of the bust out hands, some of the interesting hands, and kind of catch you guys up on what's been going on. So as you guys know, I busted 2 bullets in the Colossus, and I started playing some events that were actually off my schedule that I decided to flip around. I thought were higher value, that were not necessarily WSOP events. So this is one of those. It's the MSPT $1,100, and I'm actually going pretty deep into it. This is day 1. The blinds are 800, 1600, and there's a 200 ante in play. I'm sitting with a pretty good stack after busting somebody on my left who was a little bit difficult to play against. Won that flip, and I now have 102,000. Early position, who's been pretty tight, opens to 3,500. I'm next to act with red pocket 9s and choose to just call. I think this is pretty standard. Folds to the small blind, who calls, and the big blind comes along as well, so we go 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes Jack, Jack 3 with 2 spades. It actually checks around to me, and I could check behind here, but I felt that betting basically to kind of protect against overcards, get a little bit of value from spade draws or smaller pairs across 1 or 2 streets was probably the better way to play it. So I bet 6,500, and the small blind is actually the only caller. So we go heads up to a turn, which again is gin for me. I hit a 9. It's not a spade. He checks to me, and I decide that I'm going to keep betting here. So I bet 13,500, and he calls once again. This is looking pretty good for me. The river is a king of spades, which brings in the front door flush, and it does improve king jack now to a hand that beats us. He checks, and with the stack sizes behind, I was trying to figure out how much I could bet. I kind of wanted to look bluffy. When he checks, I decide on a pretty big sizing of about 35K. He does something sort of unexpected and jams. Now, this is not a fun situation, but it's also a spot where I didn't feel I could really realistically get away. Pocket 3s could 100% play it this way. King Jack we lose to, but might raise earlier because it feels vulnerable. Same with Jack 9 on the flop, might just check raise. And we're talking about pretty few combinations of hands that beat us. There is also the nut flush to consider. Would he actually check jam the river? I kind of lean towards no, and he actually might check raise it earlier in the hand as a semi bluff. So it's kind of hard to say what the right thing to do is here. I did ultimately with the price I was getting, decide that I kind of had to go with it and called. He showed me a hand that I didn't even really consider he could have because he did not 3-bet pre-flop. He showed me quads. So if you guys remember to last vlog, I had one hand where I rivered a boat and it was no good. So this is another hand where I improved to a boat on a later street and am not good, actually drawing dead past the flop, and he's going to take that one down. I had basically a big blind left. I got it in on the next hand and lost in that tournament. And that was basically the deepest I'd gone in a tournament thus far on the trip. It's pretty brutal to lose it that way, but what are you going to do? Sometimes that happens. This hand comes from another Venetian event. Again, I'm going a little bit deeper than I have in the past. And again, I have a pretty decent chip stack. Blinds are 500 1K with a 100 ante, and only one player at the table covers me. Early position makes it 2,000. Button, who's the guy who covers me, calls, and I'm in the big blind with Jack 8, and I make a little bit of a light call here, but with antes in play, I think it's fine. Plus, the flop comes pretty damn good for us, well above average. It's Jack 8-6 rainbow. I check, early position C bets 5,200, and the button calls. I actually think I have a pretty interesting decision here. I could just call. Check raising doesn't represent a lot of draws, basically just open-ended or gut shots. But I could have a lot of those types of hands given I defended the big blind. So I do opt to check raise and I make it big. I'm kind of hoping that early position is just going to commit to ace jack, king jack, or an overpair, and we can get the money in. Early position unfortunately ends up folding and the button calls. Now, I do think that the button will pretty much never fold a jack in this spot. He's very competent. He's going to put me on some bluffs here, and he's just not going to let go. I did also set this up so that if he was the only caller, I have about a pot size bet behind, and it should be pretty easy for me to just jam it in, put him to a difficult spot no matter what he has. However, the turn is the ace of hearts, which is the second heart on board. Now, in one sense, this is good because I could have more bluffs in this spot that would continue and feel really good about it. But I think it's a little bit of a scare card in the sense that even if he doesn't think I can have an ace that often, it just doesn't seem like a card I would continue bluffing on as much. He also can have ace jack, which has now improved to a hand that beats us and we're drawing basically dead against. So I wasn't really sure how to continue. But with just a pot size bet behind, I decided to continue with the plan and jam. He thinks for only about 5 seconds and calls. He almost has that slightly confused look on his face, like, how is he jamming here? Which is probably not good because I kind of expect it right away. I ask him, do you have ace jack? And he nods yes, shows it to me, and the river bricks out completely. I only had 2 outs, so I wasn't really expecting it to go any other way. And once again, I put in all the chips against someone who is basically the only guy who covers me or is close to covering me, and I'm out of that tournament. This next hand, we are no longer playing the MSPTs. This is over at Planet Hollywood in their Goliath series, which has a lot of pretty big overlays for fairly small buy-ins. I'm not the biggest fan of their room, and they do use a lot of pretty new, inexperienced dealers, but overall, I would say the value is still definitely there. In this hand, I'm running deep once again on a day 1. Keep in mind, we're something like 10 bullets into the summer now, and I haven't made a day 2 yet. So anytime now that I'm getting a little bit deeper on day 1, I really am starting to feel it a little bit. I definitely am aware of the fact that I could make day 2 with a good stack. And in this pot, once again, I'm playing against somebody who is the only person at the table who covers me. My opponent is a fairly competent German pro. He plays online mostly. He's 21. He's in Vegas for the first time, and he's been going hard. We've been chatting a bit and getting along pretty well, but he's kind of been giving me the fits. He's playing well, he's playing aggressive, and he's capable of a lot of things that most of the people in this field, a $700 tournament, are not capable of. In this hand, we're at the 1K, 2K level, and this is a big blind ante tournament, so the big blind is paying 2K for basically the whole table. I'm in middle position with Queen 10 of hearts, and I open up the action to 4,500. The big blind, who is this German pro and who won't be folding a lot of big blinds, makes the call. I start the hand with about 85K, and while he covers me, The German pro only has probably about 100k, so he doesn't cover me by tons. The flop comes Jack 4-3, 2 spades and 1 heart. He checks to me, and while I don't have a lot going on this board, I have a lot of backdoor potential. 3 to a flush and 3 to a straight is pretty good, and I should be c-betting a lot against him anyway because he's just getting to the flop with so many hands. I put out a bet of 3,500 and he makes the call. The turn is one of those cards that gives us a lot of additional outs. It's the ace of hearts. It also hits my range very strongly, so I'm absolutely planning to double barrel. He checks, I bet 8,000, and he gives us kind of weird news when he check raises to 26,000. It's a weird spot because it's not a card that should improve him often. I expect him to be 3-betting a lot of the ace-x out of the big blind versus my middle position open. In particular, ace-jack plus, and even if he floats flop with something like ace-5, I don't expect him to check raise that hand because it has a lot of showdown value, and it's hard for him to get called by worse, even on this draw-heavy board. So I'm actually starting to weigh him pretty strongly towards flush draws, things like combo draws, maybe 7-6 of spades, 5-6 of spades, those types of hands. And while those hands have tons of outs against us, we are actually beating them. Those hands need to improve to beat us. So I think it over and ultimately decide that he just doesn't have a lot of value combos here. It's pretty much just sets and some very, very weird 2 pairs like maybe Jack 4 suited. So I go for the jam. It's about 77,000. And he goes well into the tank, which is always a good sign here. Pretty much as long as I'm not getting snapped off, I'm in okay shape. We chat a bit back and forth about, what I could be doing, what he's got, etc. Good conversation. And he ultimately makes a bit of a crying call here. He decides that he's just going to go with it, try to get lucky, and turns over 8-6 of spades. He also says that he misread his hand as 8-5 of spades, so he thought he had a gut shot along with it, which is kind of unfortunate for me because I think he might have just folded if he knew exactly what his hand was, but that's sort of how it goes. I'm definitely happy to be getting it in ahead here, but the river is a 10 of spades, and that's going to be it for me. He covers me by just enough. I'm out of the tournament, and instead of doubling up, I am walking out of Planet Hollywood. There was another day of this tournament that I played the following day. I got to the same blind level, ended up getting it in for well over 50 big blinds with pocket kings against ace king. And it was a kind of weird spot because it was button against big blind. And button opened, I 3-bet kind of big, and he just ripped it in for 50 bigs effective. I, of course, snapped it off with kings. He had ace king suited, and he rivered an ace. So that was no fun, and once again, I went pretty deep on day one, got it in ahead, lost, and that was that. And at this point in the summer, it's hard to not question yourself. I think when people come in to the WSOP and all of the side events that are going on at other casinos, there's high expectations. You come in, you want the bracelet, you want a final table, you want to at least, cash, bag. And I haven't done that yet. And it's rough. It really is tough to come in, have those expectations, and then have things just really go poorly. But I will say that one thing that I've been better at this summer compared with every other prior summer, every other bad streak of tournaments I've been on, is just being grateful for having the opportunity to play. Being here and being able to sit at a table and play cards, play a game that I love, and try to win, even if I'm not winning, that's really okay. And I know that if I keep at it, I will win. And even when things aren't going right, the ability to step back, have that thought process, I think is super important. And it's something that I've had to really slowly and painfully grow into. And it's not something that I'm anywhere near perfect at yet. And I probably never will be, have that level of kind of just pure zen where I just don't care. And I think there's some level of human element where, I don't think anybody never cares. Everybody's going to care sometimes. So at this point, pretty deep into the summer, over halfway through, and I've fired 15 bullets at tournaments. And I haven't cashed once, and I haven't made day 2 once. It sucks. It really sucks. But I'm gearing up for some more tournaments. The summer's not over, and at least I've got some of these cash game and single table satellite wins to kind of bolster me up, at least give me a little bit of a boost on the rest of the tournaments for the summer. I have about half my action for the summer, and so having not all of myself definitely makes it a little easier to handle. Winning in other formats definitely makes it easier to handle. But ultimately just trying to stay present, stay focused, and look forward to the next events, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm here to play tournaments. I'm here to enjoy playing tournaments. And no matter how much I win or lose, I want to be able to enjoy what I'm doing because that's why I'm here. I'm here because I love poker, and I don't think it's ever going to be any other way. So the more I can get out of this experience, regardless of how my results are, that's a huge part of my takeaway from this summer, is that if I can do this, if I can handle going on this run, still enjoy myself, still be present, that's a huge win. And it's something that I'm going to take away from this trip and hopefully apply back home on other trips, and really honestly in my day-to-day life as well. If you guys like this video, leave a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Share this video with your friends and leave me a comment letting me know what you thought. I'll be in Vegas for a couple more weeks, playing a few more tournaments and giving you guys some more updates. I've met a lot of you guys around Vegas. Shout outs to all those guys who I've met and played with, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.
Bunch of poker tournaments that you go down to the Rio to play and you lose every day except for one of the days you hopefully win, and that makes up for all the days you lose.